sometimes big, long speeches, which were always difficult to cram into my head anyway. But the tiniest, you know, it might have been written as was not or wasn't, and I changed it to was not or something. We have to do that again. And I'm like, come on, guys.
Yeah.
You are driving me into my head, which means that you are soliciting from me a reading or a recitation rather than a performance. So,
Yeah.
I'm really angry now.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. I love how they tried to build a wall for you. You just walked right over it. You just climbed that wall and kept going.
Yeah, and it's really true. And they really said, I've never, and that's like ludicrous.
Your question?
Yeah, first I just want to say, Gates, I know you may have gotten in trouble for what you did behind the scenes, but I totally admire you for standing up for yourself. John, I know that you haven't seen Picard yet, but you are serving the same old Q. It's been great, so great job. So,
You use that word old.
that was a slip up, I'm sorry. Anywho, my question is, you know, you guys are talking about working on Picard now, and I'm wondering, do you have any anecdotes, just fun stories of what it was like just to be with that crew again? I know, you know, John, you were working with Picard, and then Gates, you were working with pretty much most of the TNG crew, so I'm just wondering if there are any fun stories from
There are so many.
Any you can share?
No.
John?
There aren't any stories like probably what you think. I essentially told you the essence of it, and that is that you come back. One of the things in which I was very concerned about, and legitimately so, you know, it's very nice to be asked to reprise something, but one of the things in which I was legitimately concerned about was, are they trying to recreate? And while they might not say that, I had to ask a number of questions to really discern whether they were or not. Recreating has tremendous pitfalls, and I was concerned about that. I mean, this was a character that I had played a long time ago, and for me to be, you know, prancing around like I did 30 years ago would have been unseemly at the best.
I love when you prance.
Right. And I had done a Get Smart, the remake of Get Smart, and what was his name? Don Adams.
Yeah.
Don Adams.
Made that classic mistake, and all of us as actors were like, ooh, is this really happening like this? And so I watched from a very close, watching, you know, right there. I was right there on the set, watching somebody kind of implode because they were trying to do something that they had done before. That had made a huge impression on me, and so the fact that they didn't want to recreate, the fact that as I started in and started working on the lines, and I had just, you know, you go in very gently, very gingerly. I just was wondering if you might be, you know, could I suggest? And they go, oh yes, of course. You gotta go, wow, this is so different. And then getting on a set where you've got a crew that is really concentrated and doing their best, and you, of course, are trying to do your best. You kind of go, oh, wow. So those are the stories I have to tell. Yeah.
It was my favorite. I mean, they were an incredible crew. It was my favorite crew of any of the years that I worked on Star Trek. The ADs, the people who were, you know, just the ones who would bring us coffee or do something, they were all so smart and had done so much education. They were all were ready to be filmmakers themselves. I really loved it. I loved, we had some incredible directors, and I think it's really important to know that that they had such respect. Terry Matalas really loved Next Generation. It was huge in his life, really big. And so he honored our characters and took them a step further and really risked a lot of stories. I think every person in our cast has a remarkable story and really interesting. And I hope you guys like it as much as I liked doing it. It might not be what you had in mind, but I hope it is, you know? I hope it takes you to a good place.
Yeah, and you know, one of the things in which, one of the ways in which you can take this thing about honoring this idea, I mean, what is it now, 70 years that Classic Trek started?
Just about, yeah, almost.
Okay, 70 years ago, a guy had an idea.
Wait a minute, 1966. I'm only 57 years old. Don't
Sorry, but yeah, sorry.
57
I'm Asian, I can't do math.
190 years ago. Roddenberry came up with an idea. He didn't know any more than we knew when we started out that it was going to become this. But he had an idea. And so here it is, we are continuing to do this idea. And the thing is this, there's a big difference between the feeling, the responsibility that you are really husbanding this idea along in its maturation and in its evolution. And you are really only part of a, dare I say, continuum that takes this idea and moves it, you know, and gives it like a baton to the next generation, as it were. You are not taking this idea, and I'm using Hollywood talk, grabbing the idea and pissing on it so as to make it yours. That's the difference between what could have happened and what Terry did.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Let's get some questions. More questions?
And yeah, Paramount's lawyers were backstage. They said if we spoiled season 3, they put me in the agony booth. So that happened. Your question?
Hi. First off, I just wanted to say Star Trek, Next Generation, Voyager, Deep Space Nine. You guys were my television family. So thank you so much for all the fond memories as I was a child. Thank you. My question for you is, for both of you, it's a little complicated. Okay. Either in any Star Trek properties you've done or are wanting to do, what's something that you've always wanted to do with your character? Like a story you've always wanted to portray about your character, maybe an aspect about their personality that you never really got to fully explore, things like that.
You know, I have to say, I honestly, I never put my energy once it was done. I tried to get episodes when I was filming, you know, but the first series, I didn't put my energy into that because I knew that, like, Patrick had very clear ideas of what he wanted, and he had tremendous power in what the story was going to be. So I just would look at a script and go, how good is this? Can I improve it by some suggestions or not? Whereas in my own life, I choose projects when I'm directing, or I'll choose a project of a play or something that I want to do a reading of because it's in development. That's when I feel I'm doing something that maybe speaks to me very personally in a story. But, you know, I know that's not probably the answer you want, but I learned early on that it's the studio who decides, like the way Marina and our characters were in the movies. I mean, that was a studio and Patrick Stewart decision. So I don't have any power in that situation. So you just sort of do the best job with what you're given.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
kind of what happens.
We don't write it.
Yeah.
And it's sort of a waste of time, one's own personal energy, to be spending a lot of time wishing that it were different or how it could be different and what have you. I've likened it in the past when people say to me, well, you know, didn't you want to be in, you know, whatever episode or the movie or something like that? I said, you know, guys, it's like worrying about whether you're going to be asked to somebody's dinner party. It's their dinner party. I don't have anything to do with it. I don't want to get too tied up emotionally into it. I come in, I do the work that I'm supposed to do, and then I move on.
And like, you know, I've been asked to do this part in a film that's probably going to film in June sometime, and I'm basically playing death. And that was interesting to me, because I've actually had a thing about this play called Everyman for years, and I want to try to see what I would come up with if I'm playing that character. What does that mean to me? And so things like that, you're drawn to, you'll say yes to a project because it's of interest. I have no idea whether it's going to turn out to be fabulous or not, but that's a different thing. When you're in a television series, unless you're the #1 on the call sheet, you don't have that much control, really. And even if you're #1, you don't always have that much control.
No, as a matter of fact.
Well.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Come on up for questions.
Hello, my question is for both of you. I'm wondering if you could take us back to when you first found out you got the role in Next Generation, how you felt, where you were, who told you, who'd you tell first?
Well, I will make my answer, it's a little bit long, so I'll try to shorten it. I was doing a play. Yes, I was doing a play at the Mark Taper Forum. They called me to do an audition. I said, I'm in a play, I can't leave. And I did not go to that audition. It was an audition for Star Trek. The following week, they called and they said, you didn't go to that audition. And I said, no, I'm in a play. What am I supposed to do? Just walk away from rehearsals? And they said, well, we'll make it at noontime, or at your lunchtime. And I went there, I did the audition. A guy followed me out. He said, you make my words sound better than they are. I said, well, you must be the writer. And he said, I'm Gene Roddenberry. I was like, and I rushed to the door. And he said, we're going to be seeing more of you. I'm like, I've heard that one before. And I rushed to the door, and the guy stopped me, and he said, I'm the producer who keeps calling for you. This is a payback. I go, what? He said, yes, about 4 or 5 years ago, I was flat on my back in the hospital with a quadruple bypass operation, and every day, and the minute he said that, I realized he was talking about the soap opera I was on. You made me laugh when I thought I was going to die. And I thought that if I had an opportunity, I would give you a shot. He said, we're going to be, they're going to hire you. I mean, this was all within, oh, what's his name? His lawyer.
Leonard Mason.
Leonard Maislish. Yeah, well, but you know what? I only have good stories about Leonard. So,
I only have bad stories.
So in any case, he says to me, do you not know this story? So he says to me, he says, I said, well, when? He said, they're going to hire you. I mean, they must have known between me in the room and like quite literally 3 minutes later. So I said, so when is this? So for the first time, I'm saying, well, when do you start shooting? And he gave me a date, and I said, oh, you know what? That's not going to work. I'm doing this play, and we're going to Japan. And he said, I want you to get out of the play. I said, what? And he said, this is going to be a lot more important for you than the play will ever be. For which he was right. But I said, let me understand something. When do you start shooting? That's in 6 weeks from now. So this is what I said to him. I said, look, what happens if I do that? And in the next 6 weeks, a project that's better than yours comes around. Am I supposed to come to you and say, I'm going to leave yours? And he goes, okay, we'll get the agents in on this. So they got the agents in on it, and they said to me, it cost me 2 weeks of, they would have hired me for the month. It cost me 2 weeks, but they said...
I thought you were giving the shorter version.
Okay. I'm almost finished. And for the last 2 weeks, it is that you have to be back on Monday, whatever it was. And I went, holy shit, my last show is on Sunday in Tokyo. And I went, well, that's it. I'm not going to be on this one Star Trek. And my wife said, international dateline. And so I left at 6 o'clock after the matinee on Sunday in Tokyo, and I was on the set at 6 o'clock in the morning on Monday morning.
Amazing. Well, my story's even longer, but I do know how to condense a version on it. So anyway, I was out for a screen test for something with Robert De Niro, and I had to pull that in because it was like such a great thing. And then he pulled out of the movie. But anyway, on my way to the airport, my agent, who was a huge Star Trek fan, I had never watched the original series at all. She said, "You've got to go to Paramount. They're doing this. They're up and they've got women's roles." And I said, "Oh." She said, "Please for me, please." And I said, "Okay." She said, "You have time. Your flight doesn't leave yet." Because I was going back to New York, where I was in a play. And so I go to the office. There's no one there, and that doesn't usually happen. You usually have like 50 people who look just like you, and you know, you have the sides, and everybody's like, you know. And there was no one. And then there were these 3 piles of sides, and I said to finally a woman walked in. I said, "I'm here for an audition for Next Generation." And I said, "I don't know what part or anything." She said, "Well, here's the women's parts. Just pick whichever one you want to do." And I went, "Oh, they really care, okay. All right." And I picked, this is the truth, I picked the funniest scene, and that was Dr. Crusher in The Naked Now. That was her only funny scene in about 7 years, but whatever. But I thought it was kind of funny. It was a little camp, you know, and I thought, oh, well, I'll do this one. So I went in, I did it, and then I left. And one of the producers, Rick Berman, ran out, and he had seen one of my shows in New York, and he said, "Oh, I'm so glad you did this." All right, then I leave. I was also up for a show with Linda Hunt, Des McAnuff directing, that was going to happen in San Diego at La Jolla. And I really had worked to get this part. And so the two things were competing times frame, and I turned down Star Trek. They offered it to me. I turned it down, and I went to do this play. And I loved working, we were rehearsing, and they came back and they asked me again, "Would you do this? Would you consider?" And I turned it down twice. That's how stupid I was. Because I lived in New York. I was naive about moving, television. I didn't understand any of it. Well, you saw I walked over sandbags. I mean, I was out to lunch. So anyway, I had a friend in the show who was a massive Star Trek fan, and he would explain to me, okay, warp speed is this, and this is Klingon, and so I was, okay. And he said, "You've got to do this show." And I said, "Well, okay, I don't know how." And I thought about, what do I really want in my life? And I thought, okay, maybe I should. And Gene Roddenberry calls me up and he says, "Hi. Well, I'm outside in my hot tub, and I got a nice lady next to me." I'm hoping it was Majel. And he said, "You should do this show."
Because he said the same thing to me.
And I said, "Well," he said, "you too could have your own jacuzzi and be," and of course I haven't done this, but at any rate, and I thought, you know what, maybe I should. And so I go back, and I committed to doing it, having run into Brent Spiner, who I knew from New York, and he and I were both going, "Should we do this? I don't know, Star Trek, I don't know," and we're like, "I don't know, well, good luck." And so I said yes, and they worked it out so that I would do the play at night, and then they would send a limo with dinner inside, and I would be